Donald Trump's criticism about the Muslim parents of a slain American soldier generating once again a backlash within his own party. Some 3 months from the election, Trump responded in his standard fashion. Dig in, claim he's being treated unfairly, and attack back.
His wife, if you look at his wife, she was standing there. She had nothing to say. She probably, maybe she wasn't allowed to have anything to say. You tell me, but plenty of people have written that.
This person is total incapable of empathy. I want his family to counsel him, teach him some empathy. He will be a better person if he could become, but he is a black soul. And this is totally unfit for the leadership of this beautiful country.
By the way, Mr. Khan's wife said, it's not that I was told I couldn't speak, it's that I couldn't speak because I couldn't handle the emotional toll it would take. Now, the swift condemnation of Trump's response raises questions about whether this controversy is different from the others that came before. Did he go too far this time? UNF professor Parvez Ahmed back here on the morning show to talk about that very issue. Good to have you here.
Good to see you, Bruce.
The world saw a grieving family.
Yes.
Donald Trump saw a Muslim. People are asking, is he blind to their grief?
Well, it is one thing to really screw up, is to empathize with the grieving family, particularly the grieving family of a fallen soldier, somebody who has paid the ultimate sacrifice for our safety and our liberty. And somehow, some way, Donald Trump managed to screw that up too. And so the question that I have is not so much about Trump, because we have seen this movie over and over again. He has managed to insult people, groups of people that have no reason to be insulted by him. So the question that I have is, when does he go far enough for his supporters to pull back from him? What is the threshold? I have not heard that from his supporters. I've heard, thankfully, people like Senator McCain, Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell have condemned the comments that Trump has made, but they have not yet said that they will not vote for him or support him if he continues on this path. And until that point comes, until he feels that he is threatened by his electoral support is threatened by his comments, he will continue to make these things, and he will continue to be a divisive personality in our politics.
There are those who think that this is a pivotal flashpoint in the election because they say it risks reopening the entire controversies that have been raised in the past concerning military service, religious tolerance, and those types of issues.
It does, because he is uniquely unqualified to talk about sacrifice. You know, he has had 4 draft deferments, 4 for college, 1 for having some foot problem, and here he is questioning the ultimate sacrifice of a soldier.
And his response was, I've made sacrifices in business. Clearly not the same thing.
Well, I mean, if doing that, then everybody has made sacrifices. But that's not what we mean. That's what not most people, most sane people would mean when they think about the word sacrifice. When we think about the word sacrifice, we're thinking about doing something beyond your self-interest. When he has built a business, he has not built a business to create jobs. That was a byproduct of his business. His main interest was to make money for himself, which is nothing wrong with that. You know, but to claim that as a sacrifice is, again, showing us that he really does not live in the world that most people live in. And the other part about it is that his entire candidacy is built upon this story. I almost call it a myth that he's a great businessman. Well, if he is, why doesn't he show his tax returns? That will give us a chance to not only check what he's worth, how he has built his business, and most importantly, what are the type of charities he has contributed to, if he has contributed to those charities. So the personality that the media myth that he has built around him, and the people that have bought into the myth really raises a fundamental question about where we are as a nation and where we are headed.
You know, and I think that there's a problem here. We all have this responsibility, and we've fallen short. The media has fallen short. The people who get to cast their ballots have fallen short by saying, you know what, you speak in broad strokes. You speak in cliches, not just Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, most politicians. We want answers. We want specifics. We don't get them every time we ask for them. You put us off. It's time to put down the gauntlet and get those answers.
Yes, absolutely. It's absolutely necessary for the media to ask him about his policy positions on taxes, which, again, the tax cuts that he's proposing is going to go so much skewed to the people in the upper income who really do not need a tax break at this point. The other point I want to make over here is, again, I go back to the support that he's having. I know he's visiting Jacksonville tomorrow, I think. And what I heard is that Mayor Curry is going to be at his rally. I'm deeply disappointed by that. On the heels of his insult to the brave men and women who serve our country, particularly knowing the constituency that Mayor Curry serves in this city, which is heavily skewed towards people in service, for him to show this type of disregard for the hurt that he has caused families across the country, families across our city, from veterans to Muslim Americans to Latinos to women to disabled. I mean, he has managed to insult pretty much every group in America.
So you
and
think
if he has not insulted your group, just wait. He's coming for you too.
So you think this is a broad slap in the face, and it insults everyone who is a family who has seen sacrifice, who's made a sacrifice, every man and woman who has served this country. You think it's much broader than just that one comment?
It is. It is. It is not about picking on a Muslim American. It is not about picking on a family that has brown skin. It is not about that. It is about it's being about tone deaf to the people who serve our nation, the people who sacrifice so much, and yet he's claiming to be a voice for those people. He's not. He's just a voice for himself.
I've got 20 seconds. If you could sit down right now with Donald Trump, what would you say to him?
I would say re-examine your soul. Take a moment to think who you are and what type of a country you really want.
Parvez Ahmed, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your insights. Time